If you knew that you were going to die in a few days and you wanted to let the public know, meaning your family, your friends, and those people who knew you really well, what you stood for and what you wanted them to know before you died, what would you do?
You know, for me, when someone dies, their last words seem to be the most important, you know? I mean, that's what you hang on to.
So Jesus Christ, he went out and he spent an entire day on Tuesday.
Yeah, busy day.
And he taught a lot. And so sit back and relax and spend some time with us, because we're going to go through a lot of parables, right?
Oh my goodness. We've got the fig tree, the two sons, the wicked husbandman, the marriage of the king's son, the Pharisees and the Herodians challenging Christ, the Sadducees challenging Christ, the Great Commandment, the condemnation of hypocrisy, the widow's mite, which I've got some and I'm going to show those to you, Christ being sent by the Father, the signs of the second coming, the 10 virgins, we all know that one, the talents, final judgment, meaning the sheep and the goats, and then we're going to go on to Christ being anointed with oil and Judas conspiring or hatching a plan to betray Christ. Big day. So the first thing you do in the morning is you have breakfast. And Jesus was on his way into Jerusalem, and he goes to look for figs on a fig tree that was all leafed out and beautiful, and he curses the tree. Well, a lot of people think, oh, Jesus was just hangry and he was just grumpy that morning. The fact is, that's not the case. In the Bible, often the Hebrew and the Greek, the translators are not necessarily correct all the time. And so when you know farming, as Jesus knew farming, he knew that in March and April, a fig tree, which is very common in Palestine, is supposed to produce an early spring fruit. Now, this early spring fruit is terrible. It is really bitter and you don't want to eat it. But a tree that had leafed out and had no fruit was going to produce no fruit for the fall. And Jesus knew that about the fig trees. And so he curses the fig tree. What Jesus was looking for was those early figs. And he was so hungry that he was willing to eat something that really didn't taste very good just to fill his stomach up. So when Jesus sees the fig tree, which is full of leaves and no fruit, Jesus then, knowing that the tree was missing the fruit, curses the fig tree, and it withered up almost immediately.
That is an interesting story.
Well, you remember when we were in Nazareth Village and we saw that early fruit and we're like, wait.
Yeah, they kind of explained it in Nazareth.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading from, is the day that we were there and how they explained about the fig trees and the fruit, and I had no idea.
Well, he's got lots of stories left. What's the next story?
Okay.
So, Jesus taught about two different sons, and the father said to the one son, "Son, would you please go out and wash the dishes, take out the garbage, and do something fun for me today?" And that son said, "No, Dad, I'm not going to do that. I got too much to do." Well, how would you feel if somebody said that to you and you wanted them to do that work for you?
Yeah, well, it happens, huh?
Well, the other son, he was a little bit more responsive to his father. He wanted to kind of like pat his father on the back and say, "Hey, no problem, Dad. I'll take care of it. My brother won't do it. I'll do it." And so at the end of the day, guess what happened?
What?
The one son that said he wouldn't do it, did it. The other son that said he would do it, did not. How did that make you feel?
Well, it happens. You just want to make sure that what you say is really what you're going to carry through with.
And that's what Jesus taught.
So the next story is about the wicked husbandmen. Now, husbandmen are like renters or tenants, okay? And the householder is the one who owns the land. And so in the case of this story, the householder has a piece of land, and the husbandmen are taking care of the fruit and taking care of the food and will eventually reap the harvest. And the householder sends servants to go check on the property. Well, that's understandable. How are things going? Is there anything I can help you with? Right? And they send these servants, and the husbandmen torture them, beat them, and sometimes killed them. And the householder said, wow, I think I'm going to send my son, because certainly they'll reverence my son. And he sends his son, and those wicked husbandmen kill him.
Oh, wow.
So Jesus is telling this story to the Jewish leaders, and he says, the householder comes himself and says, I'm coming to the property. Now, what should that householder do? And he asks the Jewish leaders. And do you remember what the Jewish leaders said? They said, oh, he should just kill him.
So you're saying that the householder should kill all the tenants?
Well, because they had killed his son, all of his servants, all of the people that had come to help them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the Jewish leaders said, well, he should just kill them and get new tenants, someone who is more worthy and more deserving of the land and the privileges that they had been given. And what Jesus was really saying was, the householder is my father. I am the son, and I know that you guys are plotting to kill me in a few days. I mean, that's the real story behind the parable. And so for the Jewish leaders to say, oh, you should just kill him again, he goes, you're the ones who have killed the leaders, the prophets, the servants, and you're eventually going to kill the very son of the householder, me. Jesus knew that.
So the point to the story is then that Jesus was talking to the very people that were plotting to kill him.
Yes.
And he knew that and wanted to let them know.
In a parable, so that those who were ready to know would know, and those who weren't ready to know won't know.
Okay, well, what do we got next?
The next story is the story of the marriage of the king's son. And this one, he puts on a marriage feast complete with beautiful garments and wardrobe, and the people wouldn't come. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I've got to get this done today. And gee, there's just not time today. I'm a little too tired. Whatever their excuse was, they weren't going to come to the marriage. So the king says, hey, to his servants, go to the highway, find somebody, give them the ropes, have them come to dinner. So they go out, they find people on the freeway, come out and invite them to the marriage feast, which had been all prepared, included with garments. And one of them came and was not in the wedding garment. And the king says, hey, I provided the food, I provided the wedding garment, I provided everything for you. Why do you not have your wedding garment on? And the guy goes, well, I just didn't feel like it, I guess. And the king says, bind him, cast him out, because many are called, but few are chosen.
So because he didn't wear what he was provided, then the king said he can't come, basically. He kicked them out.
Well, again, this is symbolism. Everything has been provided for you. Why wouldn't you put on beautiful wedding garments? Take off your dirty, nasty travel clothes and put on a beautiful, clean wedding garment. Why wouldn't you put that on? This was showing his stubbornness and his unwillingness to do what was required to attend a wedding feast. Now we're going to move on to the Pharisees and the Herodians who challenge Christ. They bring Christ a coin and they said, is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar? trying to trap and trick Christ. And Christ said, bring me a coin. Whose image is on the coin? Do you remember?
I don't, but we have...
Caesar.
Okay, so we have
And
some videos of it.
So Jesus said, render to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render to God that which is God's.
Then we have the silver denarius. Silver denarius is the coins they used to pay the tax in the Roman time. And this is one of the very famous story in the Bible, John chapters, run into Caesar. Give Caesar what to Caesar, God what to God. It's have been mentioned in the John chapters.
Therefore, they did not trap him. This story is the Sadducees, and they do not believe in the resurrection at all. But the funny thing is they try to trap Christ with a story about a resurrection. And the story was this. There's one woman, and she gets married to a man. This man dies. Then they said, who should she marry? Well, according to the law, she's supposed to marry the next brother. And he dies, and the next brother, and the next brother, and right unto the seventh brother. And they said,
she married them all?
Yeah, because they each died, and according to the law, she had to marry and produce heirs for whoever she's married to. So they say, in the resurrection, which, by the way, they don't believe in the resurrection, whose wife of the seven is this woman? And Jesus said, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Letting them know that he's going to be resurrected in a few days. Okay, this one is the Great Commandment. Now, this is one that Grandpa and I love the best. Okay, Master, which is the first and great commandment? And Jesus said, thou shalt love the Lord with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first and great commandment. The second is like unto it, thou shalt
love thy neighbor as thyself. And so if we had all the world living that commandment, loving their neighbors as themselves, there'd be a lot more love to go around.
There'd be a lot more loving going on.
These are a lot of stories. Jesus told them pretty much the entire day. He told stories to different people, right?
People were coming up to him all day trying to trap him and trick him. And I love the way that Jesus just loves them and stands his ground and teaches the truth.
Well, let's hear more stories then.
Okay, the next one, Jesus is condemning hypocrisy. And Jesus is talking to the scribes and Pharisees, and he is condemning hypocrisy, which means that you say something, but you don't do it. It means that you pray, but it's, oh, look at me. Woohoo, I am so great. Look at my fanciness of clothes. Look at my beautiful show that I'm putting on. And
oh, that reminds me of something.
Tell me.
So in the Fiddler on the Roof, right, Tevye is not wanting to talk to his wife in the Sabbath. It's the night of the Sabbath, and they're going to sing the Sabbath prayer song, right? And so instead of talking to his wife, he says, I'm praying. And so to avoid his wife and talking to her and listening to what she has to say because she's trying to get him to do something, he uses the excuse that he's praying, but really that's not considered prayer, is it?
No, that would be a good example of hypocrisy that Jesus is condemning. He says, he that's the greatest among you, you need to be the servant. And it was over 6 times in this story that Jesus condemns the Pharisees and the scribes, saying, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. Over 6 times. And it's like, woo. And he says, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I would have gathered you together. I would have loved you. I would have, taken care of you like a hen takes care of her chickens. But you've killed the prophets, and you've just been so wrapped up in your glory and grandeur of the beautiful Jerusalem area that you have totally missed the point of doing what you say you're going to do and being the kind of person that you're demanding everyone else to be, but you're not. In fact, he even said, you're cleaning the outside of the cup, but the inside of the cup is a mess. This is the story of the widow's mite. The rich people came through and they clink, clink really loudly. Woohoo, look at how much money I'm putting in. And the widow came in, and this is actually a widow's mite that we bought in Jerusalem. And the widow came in and she put in 2. Look how tiny that is. She put in her 2 mites. And Jesus said, this poor widow hath cast more in than they all. That was everything she had.
Wow.
The next thing is Christ said that he had been sent by the Father. So many miracles he had given the people, and yet they didn't even believe on him.
Well, that was a quick story. Let's do another one.
The next thing we're going to talk about were the signs of the second coming. And I'm not going to go through the signs, but I just want to let you know that Jesus was instructing his apostles, and they were walking out of Jerusalem, and they were looking over Jerusalem, and the apostles said, isn't this such a beautiful place? And Jesus said, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. And the apostles are like, well, when is this happening? What are the signs of your coming? What's the end of the world? And he simply boiled it all down to 4 different things. 1, take heed that no one deceives you. 2, he that endures to the end shall be saved. And then he gave the counsel to watch and pray always. Good counsel. And when we were in Jerusalem, remember we went on that tour that we were underneath the city?
Yes.
And we could literally see there was very just base stones, and they had built new on top.
So Jerusalem has been destroyed many times.
Over and over and over again,
And
yes.
so you can see how that's going to happen. So what's the next story? Ta-da!
Ta-da! The next story is about the 10 virgins. We are talking 5 wise and 5 foolish. The 5 wise had extra oil in their lamps, and the 5 foolish ran out of oil. Now these are some of the lamps that we got while we were in Israel. And there's lots of different kinds. We got this one from Nazareth Village. And you're going to ask me, because I know you are, you're going to ask me how you get oil in your lamp. What are some things that you can think of?
This hole right here?
Yes,
That's how you get it in the lamp.
And what is the oil? Because Jesus' stories are symbolic. So
Yeah.
what are we talking about?
Olive oil.
Is what goes in the lamp.
And so olive oil is significant because it's for...
The olives are very prevalent fruit in Israel, and they press this to make olive oil for cooking and for burning of the lamps and burning of the menorahs, and that's the fuel that lights the lights.
So back to your original question, how do you get oil in your lamp? But not really how you get oil in your lamp, but how you get oil in your lamp.
In your lamp, as in, say your prayers, go to church, read your scriptures.
So to be spiritually prepared so that you might burn your spiritual light, then you spiritually prepare yourself and through your relationship with Jesus Christ and Heavenly Father. Now for a short story.
This is the talents. One guy got 5 talents, one guy got 2 talents, and one guy got, give me one finger, 1 talent. Okay.
I have a talent.
Yes, you do.
I can clog. That kind of talent you mean?
Yes, but no.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Jesus gave them these talents in this parable, and the guy with 5 talents went out and got another 5 talents. Now he had 10. Okay, the guy with 2 talents went out and he learned his clogging and he learned his business and he made the world a better place. And so he ended up with 4 talents. The guy with 1 talent, give me your finger, now bury it. Went and buried it. And when the Lord came back and he said, tell me about your talents. And the guy with 5 talents originally said, hey, I have 10. And the Lord said, woohoo, go on into exaltation. And the guy with 2 talents had 4 talents. And Jesus said, woohoo, go on into exaltation. And the guy with 1 talent came back and he said,
my talent?
And Jesus said, what did you do with it?
I saved it under my buryment.
But I give you talents like your clogging that you can share it and make other people feel so happy and make the world a better place. Whatever your talent is, you are going to get your talent taken away. And I've given it to the guy with 10 talents, and he is now having 11 talents. Okay, there is a big difference between sheep and goats. Now look at this picture. This is sheep. Now look at this picture, and this picture is goats. All right, the sheep in the final judgment will be separated. The sheep on the right hand, the goats on the left hand. Sheep are submissive, gentle animals. Goats are stubborn and they want to butt heads with everyone. That's why they were used in this parable of the final judgment. And Jesus says, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Because when I was hungry, you gave me meat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you took me in. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick, you visited me. When I was in prison, you came unto me. And the people said, when do we do this? And like we just talked about with the talents, when you do something kind for someone else, anything kind for someone else, then it's the same as if you were doing it for Jesus. So if you're smiling at them, that is a kind thing. Simple as that. But then Jesus looked at the other side and said, you gave me no meat, no drink, no clothes. You didn't take me in. You didn't visit me. And you get an everlasting punishment. Well, he was talking to the chief priests and the scribes, and they did not like his parables. They did not like his stories. They did not like the way that it reflected on them. And so the chief priests and the scribes and the Pharisees got together that night, and they figured out a way that they could try and kill him. And they said, let's just go get him right now and get this done. And they said, this is the feast of the Passover. And if we do that, the people are going to rise up and they're going to be angry, and we don't need to make the people upset. And so we're not going to do this on the feast of the Passover unless there's going to be an uproar of the people.
Okay, what's our next story?
Our next story is more of a private story. This one is when Jesus was in the house of Simon the leper, and a woman came in and anointed him with a special oil. And this oil, we find out, is spikenard, which is very expensive. And when she anointed Jesus' body with the spikenard in preparation for his burial, this was very symbolic what she was doing. And one of the 12 apostles, Judas Iscariot, came unglued and said, do you know how expensive that is? Do you realize how much money we could have made? We could have sold that and fed the poor. Now, he wasn't worried about the poor. He was the one who took care of the purse for Jesus Christ, and he was looking at the money being poured out. And you know what Jesus said? Let her alone. Why are you troubling her? She has wrought a good work on me. And I love that, because lots of times when people come to attack you, it's like, I love Jesus's words. Let her alone.
Wow, that was a great story.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
For our last story, what do we have?
Well, this is the one that you know about. Judas Iscariot is going to conspire or hatch a plan to betray Jesus Christ. So we have the scribes, the Pharisees, and all the people gathered together trying to figure out how to get Christ. And in walks Judas Iscariot. And he said, hey, what will you give me if I deliver Jesus? And they went, oh, yeah, we'll give you 30 pieces of silver, which is the price of a slave back then. And Judas Iscariot goes, done. And so they were very glad to have Jesus delivered to them on a silver platter. And Judas was very glad to all of a sudden have 30 pieces of silver.
On that note,
It was a sad ending for the day.
so we'll have to see you tomorrow. Tomorrow was Wednesday where Jesus didn't do anything, but you'll have to find out what we're going to do.
We love you.